and Instagram, all at ProSynth Network. That's the handle for that. If you want to donate to the show to keep us on air, which a lot of you already do, and we're super thankful for that, there are a number of ways that you can do it. So if you're watching now or later on, you can click on the link which is in the description below the video there, but there it is on the screen. That's our PayPal donation page, so you can use that if that's your preferred method. Of course, you can also use the super chat and super sticker functionality within YouTube, and you can pay live during the show if you so wish. And if you're watching afterwards, there's a new feature, and if you look underneath the video, I think it's about kind of there somewhere, there's a little button that says thanks, and it works just like super chat and super stickers, and you can leave us a donation, no matter how big or how small. We don't mind, we just appreciate it that you do. Thank you very much indeed. No obligation, of course. Thank you very much. That's all of that stuff out of the way. And of course, if you have any questions for us or our guests, we'd appreciate if you just stick a nice big Q at the front of your post on YouTube chat, and that just helps me with my dodgy eyes to pick it out and throw it into the question bin, which I will then go to and pull out and ask the question to whoever it might be questioning to. I can't do English today. It's hot. Seriously, in the UK, we are having what we call a mini heat wave. It's about 24, 25. Well, not now, it's gone down to about 16, but I've got the window open and the fan on, so excuse me if you hear that in the background. But enough of my rambling. Let's now go to my my co-host first, Mr. Kent Spong. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Bonjour. I am okay, thank you.
Good. Is the CS80 hot? Have you had to take the hood up?
Yeah, no, she needed a little calibration.
Calibration.
Yeah.
What does that entail exactly?
Bigger hammer, mostly. It's no, she's all right. There was a couple of envelopes that were a little had gone short, needed opening up again, and one voice that had gone on holiday. You had to bring that back.
Nice.
But nothing major. So,
no.
And seeing it was quite warm in here today, I thought, I'll leave the hood up. You know?
Why not? Yeah, give her an airing. Lovely stuff. I do need to address our missing member, as the phrase is. Mr. Ben Simpson isn't with us again tonight because Mr. Ben Simpson is not very well. But hopefully he's on the mend, and he sends his best, and we send him all our best as well. He's currently ensconced within the National Health Service. But he's in very good hands, and he's feeling much better than he was a few days ago, and he hopes to be home just after the weekend, so he told me today. So, Ben, I don't know if you're watching live in the hospital or if you are going to be watching on catch-up. I know you will, because you love to. But hello, and get well soon, and don't worry, we're in safe hands here. We'll get through, but hurry back. Anything. No, not yet. No, but yeah, hurry back, but don't hurry back too quickly. Rest up. Your health is very important, especially at your age, mate. Anyway, moving along, let's speak to our guest who is joining us again. Yes, he's come back. He loved it so much. He's come back for a second helping. It's the one and only Mr. Jim Daneker. Good evening, or good afternoon.
Hello.
What time is it over there now? Is it
It is 1:06.
There we go. And how is home at the moment? What's the weather like over there?
It's hot and humid as well here.
Yeah.
I just got off a tour bus this morning, our last date of our spring tour, and so I'm thrilled to be home, and having everything powered up here is beautiful.
Is that just a North American tour?
Yeah. We head over to the UK, actually, to your neck of the woods next month, or July. Actually, I keep getting it mixed up, but Germany and Netherlands and Sweden, I think, in June, and then July we come over to the UK.
Nice. Look forward to that. Hopefully we can hook up. But
that would be wonderful.
Excellent stuff. And you're in your lovely home studio there with all of your Vegas lights going in the background there.
Yeah.
I wish I had synths that did that. I just don't have anything that's that modern.
I keep forgetting to turn off the System 8.
It looks cool. It looks cool. Any new additions lately?
I made space last week for a certain incoming Oberheim, which I'm told won't be till July or August, but anxiously anticipating that one.
Nice.
But nothing new. I can't think. I finally got myself a Moog Subsequent 37.
Okay.
Wanted one of those for a long time. Finally found a good deal on one, and
nice.
But other than that, No.
Cool, excellent stuff. Well, let's get everybody on the screen. There we go. We're all. Oh, there he goes, coughing his guts up. Right. So we've got a bunch of news. There's not a huge amount of news items, but there are some very weighty news items, and I guess there really is no other way to start than speaking about this gentleman here, Vangelis, or to give him his full name. And please, if you're Greek, don't hold this against me. Evangelos Odysseus Papathanasiou. I think I've got that kind of right. But yeah, otherwise known as Vangelis, very sadly passed away late on Tuesday night, but it was announced yesterday. I'm not going to speculate on the causes. Different things are sort of jumping around on the internet, but the upshot is that he's no longer with us. A great man, a great musician, a great composer, and a massive influence on so many people, including our very own Kent Spong there, who you attribute your passion with the CS80 to. And of course, you've worked with Vangelis and on his machines as well. So I just wonder what your thoughts are after sort of 24 hours of processing the news.
Well, after 24 hours, it was just worse.
Yeah.
Initially, it was sort of like, oh no, and yeah, he was 79, and but this morning it was like, oh, rude word. And because what it was like it's like a bloody limb missing.
Yeah.
Only because it was just because it was such a massive part of everything that I did, aspired to, and and do, and it was without kind of knowing it, but without really realising it until this morning. How much? And it was like, oh man,
Sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's another bit of my life being taken away from me, weirdly. I've spoken with the man and done work for him and stuff like that, and he's used my lovely old KSR 80,
yes,
to great effect on. I think it's Rosetta. I can't remember. Somebody will take me to task on that, I'm sure. But it was one of them up at Air Studios a few years ago. So, and it's just like. But what did surprise me is how much outpouring there was from so many other quarters.
Yeah.
In some cases, I think maybe it's because it's me and where I am, but more so than Michael Jackson and Bowie, But that's probably because in a sphere of people who are in synthesizers and stuff like that, as opposed to singers or whatever. So although there's that level of like, oh, that's a shame, whereas this is like really closer to home in some way.
Yeah, I think movie composers have a kind of a plateau of their own because they're faceless, aren't they? I mean, we know what like John Williams looks like, we know what Vangelis looks like, but we don't necessarily know some of these others, but we do know them through the music they've made and the films that they've soundtracked. And the albums that they've produced. Vangelis he was not a celebrity. He didn't court any of that stuff. No. He went where he went, and he was. There are many tales of kind of glamorous excess, turning up to a place with two young ladies on his arm, dressed up in all sorts of finery. But that was a private thing. You wouldn't see him out and about. And there's a special sort of place for those kinds of people who are just, they transcend all of that, and the vast majority of their impact is their work. And Vangelis's impact was immense because it wasn't just movie soundtracks, it was just wonderful concept albums. And yes, certainly in his later years, some might say he went off the boil creatively. I don't know, some would agree, some might not, but he was still such a huge impact. for me personally, I remember, I could tell a few stories, but I'm going to go to Jim next. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about Vangelis as a composer and how he affected you, if indeed he did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I posted yesterday when I found out the Chariots of Fire theme was foundational for me, because I was just a young kid at the time. I think I was, it was 1981, so I would have been 8 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. And that was my first real introduction to the sound of a synthesizer. Mm-hmm. That eighth note pulse, and then the 1/5 interval thing with the lead line. I mean, it just captivated me. So it kind of launched my fascination with synthesizers, with film music, cinematic music in general. And it was the first thing I think I remember really learning to play by ear, which is what got my parents' attention. They thought we should probably get him lessons, because I just picked it out. Nobody else in my family was really musical, and so that was kind of the beginning for me. And I remember playing, at school for an assembly of some sort, and next thing you know, they put me in front of a piano in front of the school choir and everything. I played the Chariots of Fire theme, and so that was kind of the beginning of everything for me. And so that was a big deal.
Yeah.
So it started my lifelong love affair with synthesizers and cinematic music. And
yeah. No, I agree. I think sorry, I should need that's that's not the right one. Sorry, let me technical issue here. Let's do that.
No, if he was anything, he was a master of taking something incredibly simplistic and making it into something huge.
He was often, accused of it, but he was often picked up on the fact that a lot of his stuff was very simple chord progressions.
Yeah, but there was something comfortable about when you listen to a track for the first time, when you got an inkling of where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then,
we've spoken a lot about this in relation to other things, but he was an absolute master of melody. It wasn't just like nice big lots of pads. His melodies were just, I was listening to some John and Vangelis today, and you just listen to all the intricate melodies that are in there, all interconnecting, all slightly different patches, but all just working as a single piece. It's incredible stuff. My abiding memory of his impact on me was in my early teens, and I mentioned this to you last night, Kent, was that I changed high schools, 3 high schools in 3 years because of parents divorcing, remarrying, and moving house and whatnot. And because I was quite surprisingly a talkative, interactive individual, I would always gravitate to the drama groups and the school productions. I'd always go along to that. And then the first thing I did when I got to my 3rd final high school was to go and seek out the drama teacher and find out what was going on. How could I get involved? And they were putting on a production of a play by Edward Bond called Narrow Road to the Deep North. And it's this particular production was set in the Far East, and so there was a requirement for some kind of music to go along with that. And the guy that was doing the lights and the sound, so same age as me, but he was the drama nerd, and he whipped out a copy of China, and he said, "Miss, this is what you want to have," and he puts this thing on. And it's like, whoa. Listen to that, Chung Kuo, the Long March, that opening brace of pieces at the beginning of that album. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. What's this? And then he told me, and then we started listening to Jar and Tomita and all of that stuff. And it was just, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to hear more of. And then, of course, it just went from there. And I picked up a few. I put Heaven and Earth on again, so that's another favourite of mine. But that was, because not only was it just an eye opener or an ear opener with the music, it was also at that particular time in my life that it has a very personal connection. So, and then of course everybody talked about Blade Runner, don't they? And how amazing that soundtrack was. And it's a big one to take in. It's a bit massive loss. a massive loss. But it's nice to see, certainly my timeline and about yours, certainly on my social media page, it was just Vangelis. John and Vangelis, or Aphrodite's Child, or all these other things that he did.
Yeah. I've been getting loads and loads of private messages coming through on the messenger, and they're saying, "Oh, Big V's gone," or Vangelis has died, literally, and going, "Are you all right?"
Yeah.
I'm going, "No, he was a huge influence in my life, but he wasn't my dad."
No,
it's steady, but he might as well have been, to be honest, considering. Yeah. But no, it's just one of those weird things. Actually, it feels weird having that open. If anything, it should be closed and turned on today.
Well, yes, yeah, but no, I mean it was a big shock. Although I think to those that knew him, certainly in his later years, his health was hampered and in a decline of some sort. So yeah, it's unfortunate. We don't know the exact details. Don't really want to know. It's just he's gone, and we get on with it. And we continue playing his music and being inspired, and he will continue to inspire for many, many years to come. I am absolutely certain of that. And his influence in not just instrumental music, synthesizer music, classical music, soundtracks, it's going to be there. His influence is there to. I mean, the very fact that the guy represented by the cardboard cutout behind you there, when he did Blade Runner 2049, there were lots of nods to what had gone before, without it being a cheesy kind of cover. Yes. Oh dear, I hate news like this. I hate because you can't get. Yeah, it's just weird. Anyway, Vangelis, thank you very much. Wherever you might be, we appreciate everything you've done.
Been harassed by my mum, no doubt.
Yes, probably. Yes.
Can we have your autograph?
Oh dear. Anyway, so that's Vangelis, and yeah, just if by any chance you're watching this and you're not familiar with Vangelis, treat yourself. That's what, because you will treat yourself. And if you want to know what to listen to, just ask that guy there. He'll tell you. He'll point you in the right direction. Everything, all of it. All of it, yeah, pretty much. So let's just underscore that with a lovely piece of generosity. This was pre-show. Okay, David didn't do this during the show. He was donating before the show starts. That's keen. Thank you ever so much, David Surchek. And the wonderful Cleopatra, the cat. Yeah, I bet it was Cleo that done it. Yeah, it probably was. He's got hold of his credit card. I love it when he comes on your show and he brings Cleo with it. She's got the most amazing meow. Yeah, it's just the best thing in the world. I love cats anyway, but that's a meow and a half. Thank you, David. Much appreciated, and thank you, Cleopatra, for that. Superb. Right, let's move on to something a bit more jovial, shall we say. So, shall we talk about something controversial instead? So, last week we spoke about the OBX8. Which was officially announced. It was shown at Super Booth. Everyone was getting, or most people, shall I say, were getting very excited about it. Some a little less so about the price, but we discussed that at the time, and I think we all agreed then that it was a good price for an amazing synth with the Oberheim name on it. But of course, there were these comparisons being thrown up with the. Call it what you want. We call it a clone, a knockoff, a copy, a rip-off, whatever. Choose your term and insert where you think it should go. By Behringer and their long-awaited Oberheim inspired instrument, which they're calling the UBXA. And there was a demonstration video that came out last week, and I guess it had to have been put out as a response to all of the Oberheim press that was coming out. And so it's like, no, look, we're still here with our thing. And it was done by the guys or a guy at Anderton's Music here in the UK. So they sent him a version. I forget his name. His name's Jack. Let's just have a quick look at that, just to sort of go in the interest of balance and fairness. It was labelled as the world's first look at the UBX. I mean, there have been some sneaky little peaks here and there, but let's have a quick look at this.
Hello, welcome to Anderson's TV. My name is Jack Duxbury. He's the Maltese Falcon. And this is the Behringer UBXA. Hopefully that gave you a little taste of what this thing sounds like. I'm now going to tell you the key specs of it whilst you look at Gorgeous Suites by the Falcon. 16 voice bitombrality with 2 analog oscillators per voice, switchable 2-pole or 4-pole VCF, 2 ADSR envelopes for the VCF and for the VCA, a 6 waveform LFO, unison mode, keyboard split and doubling, programmable sequencer, versatile arpeggiator, comprehensive modulation options, 512 patch memories, 35 split keyboard programs, 35 doubled programs, 64 step sequences in every patch memory, vibrato and filter foot pedal options, stereo outputs, MIDI control over DIN and USB, separate MPE pitch bend, filter and matrix control over the lower and upper keyboard. So that means we've got polyphonic aftertouch in there.
That was interesting, that bit. But I'm going to stop it there because we're basically going through a shopping list of what's in there. Look, you know, it sounds like it's really well specified. It's a 16-voice polyphonic analog synth with allegedly polyphonic aftertouch. I don't know whether that means it's got it or whether it responds to it. There's been a bit of debate about that. I'm not going to go through all the demonstrations. I think most people have watched it to death, backwards and forwards, and you know, they have opinions on it. I personally listened to it and thought, sounds a bit thin. Doesn't sound as thick and as fat as an Oberheim normally would. And a lot of people have been talking about the way he was playing it. That it's not his style. It's not the machine that he excels on. He's a proper keyboard player, a bit like our guest today. But I mean that with all due respect. But maybe this wasn't the right guy to do this thing, and maybe they didn't record the audio that well. That said, last night another video emerged, and this time it was from a guy who is doing beta testing on the UBXA because he is an owner of original Oberheim keyboards. So this was the Synth King, and we'll just play a little snippet of this. Now, I have to say, that sounds a whole lot better. Now, one thing I'm just going to point out here and say, I mentioned this to the guys before we came on air. If you look underneath, there is an actual original Oberheim under there. It's switched on. You see the lights are on there. There was a little cynical part of me that thought, oh, I do hope they haven't MIDI'd that up and then what we're actually hearing is what's underneath. And I'm just, you know, I'm not saying it is. I'm just, you know, saying that it just like, that would be rather bad. But anyway, so UBXA is going to come out at some point. If that video is to be believed, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be, it sounds like they've got a really nice sounding synthesizer there, and it's coming in allegedly at a price point of $1,500, which is very reasonable for a 16-voice polyphonic potentially polyphonic aftertouch analog polysynth. Because the only other 16-voice analog poly I know of at the moment that's currently in production is the Moog 1, if I'm not mistaken. Because
and the
Profit
Deluxe.
Yeah, but that's not analog, is it? Sorry, I should have specified.
Oh, okay.
An analog poly.
Oh,
so
an analog poly.
Yeah. So you've got Polybrute 6. You've got Profit 5 or 10. You've got the new Oberheim OBX8, which is 8.
Yeah.
And this is 16. This is 8 more. So, you know, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. My maths is still pretty, yeah, it's still good. So look, bottom line is, as far as I'm concerned, you've got one for everyone. You know, if you want a genuine Oberheim, there it is. If you can't afford the genuine Oberheim but want that sound, it looks like there's going to be something there. guys, who wants? Jim, you've ordered one, so tell us what you think. Would you have been tempted by a Behringer version over the original if price was a consideration, or do you prefer to have the original stuff? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think I'd have to back up a little bit. I have gotten a few of the Behringer thing. Like, I was pretty impressed by their Mini Moog.
Yeah, a lot of people have.
The Poly D, I think,
was
surprising because it added some features, the fourth oscillator and stuff that the original didn't have, and it held up pretty well. Now, I had both the I had the desktop version, which I think sounded a little bit better. It had a hotter output, so I think it was, in terms of gain staging, I'm not sure why the Poly D rather is the way it is. Maybe it's because an additional oscillator Kent knows more about this stuff than I do, but it's all that to say, I've been pretty impressed with some of their stuff. Somebody made a comment that it seems like Behringer is doing really, really well with their monophonic stuff. They have all these desktop versions, which, like the Odyssey is pretty on point, it seems. The Mini Moog stuff, it seems where they have issues to me is when they try to do polyphonic stuff, like the DeepMind, for example. It's a fine synth for what it is. I think when you hold it up next to a Juno 106, that's where it tends to kind of fall down a bit. I just don't think it has the grit and the girth of, its inspiration, so to speak. So, as far as this, if it were the Andertons video, I think obviously a lot of people got turned off by that for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that it was Jack's fault. Jack is a pretty good keyboard player, and he's done a fine job demoing lots of synths. So, from my listen, it sounds like something's just not right there. I don't know. Yeah. Because the demo you mentioned last night, I texted a friend of mine. I was like, now we're talking. This sounds much more like it's, in the ballpark it's intending to be in. But yes, I'm anxiously awaiting the actual Oberheim, the OBX8.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch it and realize your last episode talked about that a lot. I think obviously that's huge news.
Yeah.
And the contention and the, the gear space threads on that thing. It's amazing to watch some of that stuff. And I would confess the last thing I'll say is, like everybody else, I've scoured every demo I can find, and I've probably watched them all 10 times now. And in my studio with my PMC monitors and headphones, but at the end of the day, it's impossible to really get a feel for it from somebody else's YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not. You're never going to get a great picture. I will say this though, I was concerned, like a lot of people, when I'd watch like Matt Johnson and J3PO, their videos of their OBXA sound exactly like what you'd want to hear out of an Oberheim, just massive and thick, that all that glorious buttery low end. And most of the OBX8 videos I've heard didn't quite show me that. But until I have one myself and can A/B it, I've got access to some real Oberheims. I'm going to reserve judgment. What I do know is it's done by the same team, Tom, Dave, Marcus Ryle, that gave us the Prophet 5 reissue, which is absolutely a grand slam as far as I'm concerned. So I'm prepared to bet on that team. From the critical listening I've tried to do, I think all the raw ingredients are there. I think it's just going to take somebody doing a proper demo. Most of the demos I've heard are just 70s synth spaceship noises. I want to hear big, pads and the stuff that you listen to an Oberheim for.
Absolutely. No,
so the Behringer rather. That was a very promising demo last night. I think it was much better. I think they did some damage control.
Yes.
From the one from last week.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, look, I'm not sure I'd be in the market for one of these. I'm kind of happy with where I am at the moment, but I'm just thinking, in these times where money is an issue increasingly for a lot of people, and you're in the market for an analog polysynth, and you've got You've got a Prophet 5 at a few thousand. You've got the OBX8 at a few thousand. The Poly Brutes just over 2. Somebody comes in and says, "Here, you can have 16 voices for $1,500."
Yeah.
You know, and as I think Ty said, I can't remember if it was on this show or on yours, Kent, that, you know, he said, look, you know, everybody thinks that I hate Behringer, but I don't. There's a market, they're supplying it, and they're perfectly good. There's nothing wrong with that. Ethically, he doesn't agree with them, and, you know, to a point, I don't either. However, they're making good stuff at great prices that everybody can get on board with. What do you think, Mr. Spong?
Well, the thing is that there seems to be two markets. There's the market where people want the original, or as close to the original as humanly possible, and then there's the people who don't worry about that so much and just want to be delivered facility and sound at a good price. And those are the two markets. The OBX8 is on that side of the market, and the UBXA is on that side of the market, and never the twain shall meet, right?
Yeah.
But I must admit, when I was listening to that demo, it was the Synth Kings demo, and you got that OB underneath, and I immediately, like you, went, a bit of a reverse Dave Spears here. Yeah. And then I listened to what he was playing and went, oh no, it is the UBXA. That is it playing. And the reason for that was when he made a transition from one chord to the next chord, there was no note robbing.
Right.
And if she's an 8 voice, there would be at least 2 notes of the last chord go like that. And they didn't. So go, so that's more than 8 voice. So yeah, it must be that puppy on the top. In which case, cool. That's more, shall we say, sort of the sound you want to hear in a demo, rather than the Andertons one.
Yeah.
Which probably would have sounded better if they were just smacking it with a club hammer. It also has 2 envelopes. Bang, bang. Not anymore, you know, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's you know, to literally echo you, Robbie. You know, it's that. Yes, there are ethical issues, but it really seems to matter less and less as each day goes by. To be honest.
Well. I'm going to mention what
but they're making stuff that's cheap and good and everything. Yeah. And it's like there's a lot of people who are really, really glad they're there and they're doing it.
Exactly, yeah. And what I want to put this out there. Whenever anybody criticises Behringer, and I've criticised him in the past, I've said good things about him in the past. I'm saying it about Behringer. I'm not saying about the people that use or buy Behringer equipment. This is not an attack on those people. You buy what you want. You buy what you can afford. You buy what's going to suit you. I don't care whether it's made by Behringer, whether it's made by Oberheim, whether it's made by Modal or Yamaha or Roland. You buy what you want. I'm not criticising individuals. I have, and many other people have, fairly good reason to feel a little perturbed, shall we say, put that diplomatically, about business practices and ethics and that kind of thing. But bottom line is, if you're making music and you don't have a lot of money in your wallet, then there is something for you. You are no longer excluded like we used to be back in the 80s when we were aspiring. I want a Fairlight, I want this, I want that. There was just absolutely no way on earth. There were no options. There weren't plugins or anything like that to use. So now we have that, and that's to be celebrated.
Yeah. Hey, Robbie, that brings up a great point. You know, rewind a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. You know, Roland announced the Juno X.
Yes.
To a lot of criticism, and then a couple days later, the OBX8 was leaked and then officially announced. I thought it was fascinating that so many of the people that criticize Roland for give us a real Jupiter, give us a real analog reissue like Sequential have done, and now Oberheim is doing. But then you look at the price, and within 24 hours, if that, everybody's complaining about the price of the OBXA, and you may be X8 rather. You may have covered this last week, and I just thought, you know, this is funny. 40 years ago, none of us could have afforded this stuff. You know, a $5,000 synth today, if you adjust for inflation, was $16,000. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it's that's fascinating to me. You know, everybody that's saying, give us a real Jupiter 8, which they have no idea what manufacturing would be involved to do that. And what price would it come in at? You know, so it's just, I don't know. It's just funny to me, you know, we talk out of both sides of our mouth. You know, we say, I would buy it. Yeah. Well, really? I mean, if you, like you just said, Robbie, I mean, this stuff 40 years ago was untouchable by the vast majority of us. And here we are. This stuff adjusted for inflation costs a fraction of what it did back then.
Well, the price of an OBX-A back in the day was about $4,950.
Yeah.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yep.
So the price of an OBX-8, which has qualities of all of those classic OBs, is $5,000 today. So it's technically a lot less than what they used to be.
It's a fraction of what it would have been.
Yeah, because roughly about the same time when the OBX-A was, I think it was 4,350, around about midsummer time. I don't know why I remember that, but I do remember, because of the industry I was in, that a brand new Ford Fiesta 1.3L was the same price. So good luck anybody finding a brand new car for $5,000.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and that's the comparisons now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's also relativity. I mean, and the fact that, you know, I sometimes find myself, I think I look at something I want to buy, whether it's, you know, an instrument or whether it's a record or whatever, or a box set of something, and I look and I think, no, that's too much. But then literally 5 minutes later, I'll get an email saying, released today, super deluxe edition, blah blah blah, with all of this stuff, and it's, you know, more than that thing that I've just said no. And I was like, I really, really want that, so I can justify it. And it's about personal justification of that kind of outlay, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you think you can justify it and it's what you want, you'll get it, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I mean, like I said before, there's the Oberheim sound for everyone. You can either have it in a plug-in, whether it's Arturia's OBX or OPX as they've now called it, whether it's Dave Smith's officially endorsed 8-voice, whether it's Cherry Audio's 8-voice, whether it's Arturia's SEM, whether it's Behringer's UBX-A, whether it's Tom's OBX-8. There's choice. And at the end of the day, that means the consumer is the winner, and I guess we should be happy with that. But we shall see. I mean, at the end of the day, there's very few people who've got any of these in their hands. So we're going on other people's examples. Yeah. You know, Dave Spears has currently got the one that was in Super Booth, and he's playing around with it, and he was waxing lyrical about it. If anybody knows that, you know, how an Oberheim should sound, it's that guy, and he's just like really enthusiastic about it. But yeah, I think when it starts hitting the streets and we get, you know, people like yourself, Jim, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing you doing a demo of it and getting in the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing with it, and the same with the Behringer one. Let's hear it in the right, you know, in its right environment, and then make a judgment.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. Oberheim. So nothing really to announce in terms of price and availability there. They're both kind of, at the moment, still awaiting, but orders are being taken, I believe, for the OBX-8 now. And the UBX-A is coming soon based on the availability of chips, so we're told. As much of the other things. Yeah, when the chips arrive. Right, okay, so let's see. I just want to do this very quickly. This wasn't on, we're not going to discuss this, but I just want to mention it. So regular viewers will probably know that we've spoken about, and we need to get this guy on the show, we've spoken about Craig Aspin, who runs a website called sweetdiscrete.co.uk, and he's the guy that Jim knows well, because he's done the membrane overlays for the KX88s and the DX7s, and he was contacting us a little while back, asking to see if we could drum up some enthusiasm for Oberheim Matrix 12 and Expander overlay panels. He's now got sufficient orders in. He's going into production. He literally messaged me about half an hour ago. So Matrix 12, Expander, and old school Expander panels are all about to go into production in about 2 weeks' time, but he's got the required number. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, then all you need to do is go to sweetdiscrete.co.uk. He's also just announced. Let me just bring this up on screen, and everybody will groan because it's to do with the DX7. But he's actually starting a total synth restoration service, and the first example that he's going to do is the DX7. And let me just bring this up on screen. It's not just fitting new membranes. Oh boy, no, this is much more than that. He will take your case and he will blast it down to the bare metal. He will then fully restore it in terms of the paintwork, all the silkscreen printing, the membrane replacement, the whole lot. It's not cheap. It's 435 quid, but you will get your DX7 back as if it had just come out of Hamamatsu in 1983. He will even redo your serial number plates as well. Wow. It's the whole shebang. So if you've got an aging DX7 that you think might benefit from one of those, he's doing that. And that's just the first, apparently, in a long line, he hopes, of more restorations that he's going to be doing. So he's looking at PPG, Prophet 5, Jupiter 8, and TR 808. That's the next one he's going to be working on. So there you go.
He might have his hands another big opportunity. Everybody's talking about how the new OBX8. Some guys want the blue pinstripes instead of there's a great idea. Exactly.
Yeah. But yes, Craig's doing some absolutely fantastic work, and on top of that, he's building. I'm not sure if it's been completed yet. But he's building this recording studio. Let me just show you this, because this is fascinating. This is why I want him on the show. He purchased an old is it, what do they call it when the church is kind of taken out of action? Is it deconsecrated, or I can't remember what the word is.
Something like that, yeah.
But basically, it's decommissioned, but it's in the kind of the official
brought into reality.
Yeah. So there you go. So he's got this wonderful space. Look at that building.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's building a studio in there. So
there's so much money in stickers.
I know. It's amazing. But he's up in the northwest, so he's Ben's neck of the woods.
Oh,
so
40 quid.
He's filling it up. He's building it. Yeah, just amazing. So Magic. Craig is doing some amazing stuff. More information on that, sweetdiscrete.co.uk. That's the website, and Craig is a member of our group on Facebook, so if you want to hit him up on there about anything, there you go. Right, that was just something I threw in. I wanted to do it before I forgot. So let's see what's next on our list of... Oh, by the way, he's also doing... He just put here... he's doing black versions of the DX7 to match the KX88.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So you can and you can have the graphics in gold or blue. Wow. Cool stuff.
That'll work.
Yeah. So there you go. Right. Let's see, what have we got next on the list? I think let's do this one very quickly. Our friends at Sample Logic have just released a new instrument, and it's very simply called Gamelan. But it's more than just a gamelan, but it's if you've not, we've covered these before. So Sample Logic produce instruments to be used in Contact, and they specifically target the scoring cinematic market. Although you can use this wherever you really want to. They kind of work on this principle of having kind of like four engines. This engine is divided into four different sounds, or up to four different sounds, and then you can move between them using a kind of like a vector synthesis type method. But there's loads of stuff built in, loads of effects built in, and it's just huge amount of samples in here. Let's just quickly play the video demonstration. Look, So I'm reliably informed that that is all the Gamelan instrument that you hear there. It really is very. I mean, I've been playing around with it for a few days, and it can be, if you want it to be, it can be just like that single key with a rhythm and some kind of sort of arpeggiation in there, a bit of movement, or it's individual instruments that you can just play yourself. But it's really very inspirational, like all of their stuff. It's very inspiring. You can just sit down with that and start coming up with something. And I guess if you're scoring to picture for a living, and you want something really quick and snappy, here's the thing. Great introductory price, by the way. It's normally this one's normally $250. It's $89.99, and you get all of that stuff in there. 6,000 never before heard sound presets, dozens of fully customizable FX, 4 sound core engines, as I said before, which you can then blend. The morph animator, the step animator, the core mixers, hot swappable FX chain technology. It's all based in Contact, so it's a full Contact instrument. Won't work in the demo. Some of their stuff used to use Contact Player, but they've stopped doing that now for I guess licensing reasons. But yeah, Gamelan is available from Sample Logic now. Introductory price. Did you guys get a chance to listen to this? And any thoughts?
I've been seeing ads for it, but I haven't. Because I've been gone, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
But do you like that sort of? I mean, do you use tools like that in your work? Because you do a lot of sync music, don't you, as well?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I love any kind of organic percussion and stuff like that, and so that would be right up my alley.
Yeah, cool. How about you, Kent? Because you do like to kind of noodle with sort of ambient type things, and
well, I'm glad you brought this one up actually, because I bought this Friday.
Oh, there you go.
And forgot. I haven't installed it yet.
What's your name, Ben?
Yeah, I know. It's more like Thai. It's sort of like, did I buy that?
Yeah.
No, I have yet to put her on because I listened to that video and everything like that. I went, oh yeah, I got this a little something I'm working on where that'd be quite useful actually to put that in. So I grabbed her, especially at that price anyway.
Yeah, I mean 18. Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, because it's nothing worse than going back and then going, it's how much?
Yeah.
Oh damn, I missed it. Yeah.
I'm just going to see if I can get it up because I've got Logic running. So I'm just going to. Where are we?
Well, I'm here.
I can't. No, I can't. Oh. Where has that gone? Or maybe I didn't. No, I should have. Oh, I'm just gonna.
You dreamt it. You didn't download it.
No, I've definitely got it on here. It's just not showing up in my instruments. Or maybe I didn't do it.
Does it have a panel? Does it have a contact panel, or is it files?
This is. I'm so distracted. What I'm actually doing is I should be looking for Native Instruments Contact and then opening it up in that.
Check the tune knob.
Indeed, yeah. Check the tune. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I was doing a Polybrute demo. So, I listened to this, and I was like, oh, but that sounds really odd. Oh, let's do a retune. So we carried on. We did that, and it still sounds really odd. How many times did I try and do that? 3 or 4. Then eventually glanced up at the fine-tuning knob, and it was hard right.
Yeah.
So yeah, not very good. Right, it's just loading up now, but. Yeah, it's $89.99, which is a fantastic introductory price. But their stuff is just so good. And every time they release something, I always get a little bit excited and a little bit upset because I think, oh, God, there's something else that's massive to download. Takes up space on my precious sample hard drive. As you see, it's still loading at the moment, so there's quite a bit in there. Maybe I've got too much going in the background. I don't know. Anyway, let's give up on that one. It's available now from samplelogic.com. Sample-logic.com, I believe, is the correct address. No, it's just samplelogic.com. $89.99 US. So I guess that's what 70. Something like 70 quid.
Yeah, 73 pounds, something like that. Yeah. I think.
I always get good at doing the conversions in my head, and then the bloody exchange rate goes, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Anyway, let's just quickly have a look. No, it's still loading. We'll skip that one. Right. So there you go. Sample Logic's Gamelan. More than just a Gamelan. It's a load of other things besides. Right. What else have we got to talk about? Oh, yes. There was this from our friends at Spitfire Audio. What's happening to Labs is the question. And Christian will tell us. We won't obviously watch this because it's about half an hour long. But basically, Labs is becoming something a bit extra. I don't know why we're doing this, listening to that. Anyway, it's a long video. It's worth having a watch because Christian is a very enthusiastic individual. But he starts off by going kind of through the way that he and his peers would share samples around back in the day. And he's kind of talking maybe 20 years ago or so. And he talks about the sneaker net, which is a term I only came to know about 10 years ago when I worked for an American company. And we produce, one of the things that we produce are card readers, that you use when you want to go into a door, you do that. And when you want to reprogram all the card readers in the building, they used to say, oh, yes, you have to do it by SneakerNet. And I was like, SneakerNet, what's that? Is that some kind of code word? Oh, it means you have to walk around to each one and do it. So he talks about the SneakerNet here. And the essence of Labs is this kind of sharing of content for free amongst like-minded individuals. All legitimate, of course, maybe not so much back in the day. But Labs is evolving and it's becoming bigger, but it's still going to remain this amazing resource of free content. But it's being rebranded. It's got this new logo. It's got its own YouTube channel now. The only thing, I don't know if you guys watched this video at all or maybe just the beginning of it, but there did seem to be a bit of revisionism in the history of sampling. And I hold my hand up. He talked about the Fairlight and said, the first digital commercial sampler available was the Fairlight CM1. And yeah, I was like, no, it's not the CM1, it's the CMI 1 or 2 or 3, but not the CM1. I was quite embarrassed and quite ashamed at how angry I got at that. However, we'll forgive him that. What Spitfire do, I think, is amazing because they make these fantastic, massive libraries that are used by professionals, but they also cater for the other end of the market, and they're going back to sampling the way I always thought it should be, which is creating new things from other things rather than let's just sample an orchestra because we can't afford to hire an orchestra every week. We just let's create a string sound from something like an inanimate object like a glass bowl or a saucepan or something, whatever. That to me is that's the real ingenuity in sampling, is creating stuff that didn't exist before. So Labs is going. I mean, I know Kent, you use Labs. You've probably got all of them. Jim, are you a Labs fan?
Yeah, I've got all of it as far as I know.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Any thoughts on this one? It's not a huge piece of news, but
I haven't seen. This is news to me. I haven't seen it yet. But again, I've been out of pocket the last.
Of course,
days,
so, we forgive you.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's an interesting video. It's about 10 minutes long. He kind of goes through this kind of history of sampling and history of how he, and his friends and peers used to do it. And then, he's got this real big vision. And they've also got Piano Book, which is another great website that's kind of affiliated to Spitfire. I think it's kind of Christian's own little thing, but loads of free piano and paid for if you want samples of pianos, all different types of pianos on there. It's a fascinating place. But yeah, hats off to them. Any thoughts on that one, Kent?
Fiona was watching this very rude adult animation film that was on, and I watched the video, but I had the sound turned down.
Right.
Unfortunately, at the end of the video, I went, "No, I didn't glean anything from that at all. I'll have to watch it again." So I will watch it again, this time with the sound on, so I know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But because he had that little tattoo or something he'd had done and everything like that, were they going to change Labs to like the same thing like when Prince changed his name or something.
It's almost
to
like
emblem.
Yeah, it's like what you get on the back of a stormtrooper, isn't it? Those two like vertical lines in a circle. It was kind of weird. But what I love about Christian Henson is his passion and his enthusiasm. It's very infectious. Sometimes to the point where it's like it's a little bit too much. I'm like, rein it back in, mate, rein it back in. But saying that he's super enthusiastic about what he does, and I'm hoping that because I know Spitfire are going to be at Gearfest in London on July 2nd, this small plug, at Tyler Studios, which is where Spitfire are based. And I'm hoping he's going to be there, and I'm hoping I might get to meet him and have a chat with him about sampling. And hopefully he didn't see my comment under the video that was criticising what he called the Fairlight CM1.
It's
anyway,
you!
It was
It was you! I know you!
Yeah, get out of my studio. So there we go. Let's see. We've got a couple more things before we get into the weeds with Jim. Sounds odd, doesn't it? Getting into the weeds with Jim.
Just rude.
Here's something that came out post Super Booth, but is interesting nonetheless. This is the supposed Dreadbox Murmux polysynth. So Dreadbox have been doing some great things of late, and this is a front panel that was leaked, I think, via Tom at Synth Anatomy, and has then kind of come through. This is Gear News, which our friend Robin Vincent is a contributor to. And, excuse me, it's the name of a bass synthesizer the Dreadbox made in 2014, but now we're looking at possibly a polyphonic version of it. This is all that we've got here is a front plate. But I just thought it was interesting to bring this one up because, Dreadbox are knocking it out of the park. Didn't we speak last week about this DIY kit that they were doing, the Dysmetria, I think it was called? And they've had the that little polysynth that they did recently. I've got to admit, though, these leaks, they're getting too early now.
Yeah. Soon it's going to be, some Facebook thing come up with a bloke holding resistor going sequential planning new polysynth.
Yeah.
It's like,
indeed,
dude, too early. Tell us when there's something to tell.
Yeah, but no, interesting. Polyphonic. There's no real kind of information other than what we can sort of glean from the image here.
Yeah.
So 3 VCOs, I think it is, with 2 VCOs with sync, multi-wave VCOs, couple of LFOs, filter, bucket brigade delay, a regular delay, a polyphonic LFO, and a regular LFO, and envelope generators there. So yeah, it looks interesting. 8-voice polyphonic synthesizer apparently. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. But let's
see. A bit of while yet.
Yeah, quite. Because there's no chips. Right, let's see. Here we go. So let's get rid of that. So I'm just doing some housekeeping here. Right, let's do this one. Can you tell that I'm missing Ben? I do miss the
possibly
old
a little.
I do miss the old bugger. So this is new from IK Multimedia, and this is part of their T-Rack series. It's just come out yesterday. So the Joe Chiccarelli vocal strip, and I did have a tiny little play with this during my lunch break, which was quite busy as it was. It's currently $129.99. It's normally $159.99. But Joe Chiccarelli, who's worked with the likes of Elton John, the White Stripes, etc., he's produced in conjunction with IK Multimedia this brilliant channel strip basically for vocals, which contains 3 different types of compressor, which you can use either individually or together. There's reverb in there, and it's just really, really nice. And unfortunately, I could only test this out with I got some vocal samples and just fed it through it, and I could then I couldn't test it. I don't sing, so but it was really, really nice. Really enjoyed that, and so it's part of the IK Multimedia T-Rax series, which I think, Jim, you're a big fan of T-Rax. Am I right?
Can't remember now. It probably wasn't me. I mean, I'll always love their stuff when I've heard it, but I don't. The last time I used some of that was probably back in the early Spectrasonics days.
Okay.
But yeah, always heard great things about their stuff.
I guess, Kent, you're not really into. No, there we go. Okay, well, that's a short one, but it's out now. It's 129.99. I'd say I ran some vocal things through it, some samples, and the compression on that sounds really nice. Particularly, I mean, if you want sort of like just a sort of general warming up, that normal parallel compressor is very nice. The retro gives it a really kind of richness to the tone, and then the heavy parallel compressor is much better suited to kind of hard vocals, rock vocals, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just a really nice plugin. Looks great as well, of course. The design in these things is fantastic. So yeah, the main parallel compressor is modelled on a UREI 1176, Fairchild 670 for the retro parallel comp, and then a UA 176 and a TubeTech CL1B for the heavy parallel comp there. So it's just this one kind of one box does all. If you want the vocal plugin, there you go. That will take care of you there. Right. I think. Oh, I just want to mention this again. This is news came in while we were on air. Please go and check this out after the show, of course. But Alex Ball has just released a new video. It's a 15-minute long demonstration of the infamous ARP Avatar. And of course, Alex did a chat with Dina Perlman yesterday for the Archives collection, which will be on YouTube. So if you want to go and watch that, that'll be fantastic. I haven't had a chance to do it myself. But yeah, this is Alex with the ARP Avatar. And if anybody can use one of these, it's going to be him. We'll stop it there just before we get a copyright strike. I know Alex will let it pass, but yeah. Kent, am I right in saying the Avatar is essentially an Odyssey? But with
Odyssey.
With a guitar pickup.
Yeah, it's basically the Odyssey, yeah. They didn't change the boards or anything like that.
Right,
obviously, an audio to CV converter.
Yeah, David Torn was a big user of that, wasn't he? He did some work with Drew Schlesinger, who we had on the show a few weeks back. Yeah.
I don't get them in anymore. I used to get them in, and of course, I used to have to test them. Hence the
guitar.
That piece of wood over there.
Yeah, with strings.
What's it called?
Guitar.
Yeah, guitar. Yeah, guitar. That's right. Yeah, guitar. And I have to use the guitar to make it make sound, and then I know it's working.
Excellent stuff. Ever used one of those, Jim?
No, the closest I've come. Have you heard of a harpeggi? Do you know what a harpeggi is?
Well, yes, I do. I saw Stevie Wonder play one many years ago, but you've just got one of those, haven't you?
Yes. Long story short, a friend of mine invented it back in, I think, 2006 or 7.
Cool.
And when he first showed it to me, I was floored because it as a keyboard player who wishes he could play guitar, it's a godsend because it's laid out like a piano. It's electrically, it's a guitar. It's got a standard 1/4-inch output and pickups. But there's 3 versions. One has 12, one has 16, and one has 24 strings.
Right.
And all that to say, I did some demos for them back then, and they kind of blew up. And next thing you know, Stevie Wonder got one, Coldplay got one, A.R. Rahman, the guy that scored Slumdog Millionaire, he got one. And now these days, Jacob Collier and Corey Henry are big advocates of it. Anyway, I reached out to him a few months ago before we did this spring tour that we just finished last night and asked if I could borrow one. And after all these years, he made me one, which was very, very kind. But all that to say, I've been using it with a Helix floor, pedal unit. Mm-hmm. So that's actually, I mean, obviously that's just audio. That's not converting audio to MIDI like that. But I remember back in the early days when I was doing music retail in the early 90s, I used to mess with the Roland, I forget what it was called, but Roland had
the GR300.
Yeah. And that's as far as I got with it. But
okay.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Cool stuff. Yeah. No, I'd love to. I've seen videos of Stevie playing it, and yeah, I mean, videos of Stevie playing anything is cool.
Yeah.
But that really was, and he's really fallen in love with that, hasn't he? It's
He
kind of
he has, yeah. He plays it all the time.
amazing thing. I'd love to do a video. Come on.
Yeah, I
Show
did.
us how it
There's
goes.
one on my YouTube channel. When I got
right.
it a month or two ago, I did just a brief thing when I was getting my hands around it again. But I'll do some proper ones.
Yeah,
soon.
I'd love to see that. But anyway, yeah, ARP Avatar video from our friend Alex Ball, who, again, we must try and get him back on the show soon. That's available now on his YouTube channel. Just search Alex Ball there. Right, I believe that's all the news items. So let's get into Jim. So Jim, you've just come back off tour with Michael W. Smith, and was it just you and him, a couple of keyboards.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
it was billed as a night at the piano. It's really just him, but he takes me along when he does all of that kind of stuff because I do all the, everything else, pads, and in this case, I took the arpeggi out to play, some guitar type things and keep it, organic, so it's just not two guys and keyboards. So it was him at a piano, and then I did the, pads and strings, and I took out a MIDI percussion pad and was playing some hand percussion stuff. And but we're about to get back out with the whole band, and it was fun, but it's you miss having the whole band when it's just the two of you.
Yeah.
So,
it must be nice for a change, though.
Yeah. It's I mean, the nice thing is there was only 3 of us on a whole tour bus, so that you don't have 10 people all on a bus. So that's nice. But
Cool.
You miss having the whole entourage and the whole full show. But it was fun.
Yeah.
I had my KX88 out again, and
How's that? Is it still going well?
It's amazing. I think we talked about this last time, but I only intended to take it out for a weekend back in the fall.
Yeah.
I was going to do a video with it, and next thing you know, I had 3 of them in here, and 1 out of the 3 was absolutely mint. It's like my DX7. It was never played for 35 years, and it feels fantastic. And I just fell in love with it. It's not a hammer action per se, but I had surgery on both hands a couple of years ago from banging on weighted keyboards for 40 years. So it suits me, and I love the look of it. It's an icon, and so I keep using it, and it's a lot of fun.
So last time we had you on the show, you were telling us all about the new library for Backstage Pass, which is your brand name for sample libraries to be used within Apple's MainStage, which is your main tool on your live rig.
Right. And
you were telling us all about DX Dreams, which is the first one, and we all had a play with it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's literally it's the next best thing to owning the real hardware, because you've caught all the capture, should I say, all the nuance, and you've used the effects of the day to get all of those sounds. Right. So what's new in the world of Backstage Pass? What can you tell us about what's coming up?
Well, I took, how do I say this? It started to overwhelm me. It's like having 10 full-time jobs, because I was having to develop the products themselves, and then build websites, do the demos, support people, and it was eating me alive. And, I've got my dream studio here. I haven't been able to make music in the better part of a year. So I decided to hand it all over to a company called multitracks.com. And so that they are doing all the admin type stuff that I don't really have time to do, which ideally is going to free me up to do what I do best and develop more libraries. So because I kind of had to shift gears into tour mode, that was the last month and a half. So now that that's done, I'm going to jump back into the first thing on my list is finish converting everything to Contact, because that was I think last we talked, I was just in the process of finishing DX Dreams for Contact. That was
that's right,
that was a big hurdle, and because converting sample formats, you're never going to get it exact. Every platform is different. Contact's filters sound different than Logic's filters. And with as picky as I am about DX sounds, that's the reason I didn't do it for the longest time. I refused to do it because I didn't want to compromise at all. I wanted it to be, we've talked about this. If I'm going to try and duplicate DX sounds with samples, which is already extremely difficult, I was only willing to do it if I could get it to be, shut your eyes and not be able to tell which was which.
Yeah.
And I feel like I achieved that with, Logic Sampler just happens to be really good at that. But after a lot of experimenting, I got to where the Contact version, it's different. It's a different approach, but I'm happy with how it came out. And so all that to say, I've got to do that for Backstage Pass itself for all the bread and butter sounds. And then there's two other products in the fold. There's a dedicated grand piano called Blairmaster's Signature Grand, and then there's one based on the Ensoniq VFX, which is a much smaller one. That's just called Best of VFX. And so once I get all those converted to Contact, hopefully in the next couple weeks, then I can dive back into new libraries, one of which is based on the Prophet 5. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. It's tentatively titled Prophetic Dreams, kind of like DX Dream.
Yeah.
Focusing on all the analog stuff and trying to create a sample-based version of that doesn't behave like typical samples. That's much more organic and alive and uses, random LFOs and things to get some of that pitch wonkiness that we love about analog synths. And so that's going well. Got a lot of sampling done on that. I've got I'm anxious to get that Oberheim in here because I want to do something with that when the time comes. But DX Dreams, I stumbled on a little side expansion that I'm working on for that. I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but Yamaha, see if I can find, I don't know where I put that thing. Yamaha in 1986 came out with, it's back here. I can't pull it out now. It was a little 2-operator synth called it was the PSR series. And there were home keyboards, but they had, let me grab it. It's, this thing was a brilliant little keyboard. Let's see if I can get this in frame. It had these green sliders.
The modifiers, Yeah,
it was like an analog synth control over DX7 sounds.
Yeah.
And I think you could trace the lineage back to the GS1 and GS2 because it's 2-operator. And man, I had a blast with this thing as a 13-year-old when this came out. And there's sounds that I can get out of this thing that I can't get out of the DX7.
Yeah.
And so I thought, why not do an expansion on that, and it's kind of like a TX816, which that was 4-op obviously, but this thing, it's got some wicked sounds in it. And so I'm going to work up a little expansion based on this, which I kind of will scratch the itch. I've always wanted a GS1 or GS2. And ironically, this little thing, can kind of get you a lot of those sounds.
Nice.
And this wasn't velocity sensitive, so I'll be able to incorporate that and kind of tackle some of add the AMS reverb impulses into it. And I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a fun little side project.
Nice. Did I see you post a picture recently of a couple of TX802s that you had?
Yes.
So what are you using those for?
I did a handful of sampling for another expansion for DX Dreams,
cool.
which I think is I'm just going to add that as a free add-on when those are done, just to keep incentivizing that. And for guys who bought into it, kind of like Spectrasonics has done, just give you more content for it, to reward, loyalty and all the guys who've been along for the ride and some more electric pianos, and you can't have enough of those. And I wanted to sample some stuff with the Mark II, the DX7 Mark II, and then the 802s with their improved circuitry and noise floor and all that kind of stuff. So there's some new sounds coming for that.
Awesome.
That's what I use those for.
Cool. And weren't you also doing something with Roland digital pianos? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. Okay. So long story, but I'll make it very short. I spent 8 months last year capturing the MKS-20.
That's it.
And it's obviously been done by other people. Spectrasonics. Eric did. It's in Keyscape. But Eric obviously has a very special relationship with Roland because he was their patch designer. Lead designer for years, and they've got some kind of licensing agreement. So anyway, I made the assumption, erroneously on my part, that there would be no licensing issues with it because it's not based on proprietary samples.
Yeah.
and I've got a great relationship with Roland. I'm not officially an endorsed artist, but they've been very kind to me, and it's kind of a gentleman's agreement, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to play their stuff, and so when it came time to put it out, I thought, you know what, just to make sure, there were actually 2 samples in the entire library that were based on the JD800, which of course is based on, waves. So I called my friend, contacted Roland, one of them, and I said, hey, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right and I'm not stepping on any toes. Do I need to pull those sounds? And he said, yeah, you probably should, which was fine. I mean, it was just 2 sounds out of whatever it was. And couple days later, I got an email, and he said, Jim, I've got some really bad news. The samples, or excuse me, the raw. I mean, an MKS20 is kind of like a DX7. It generates its sounds with synthesis, but those sounds were based on proprietary recordings of real pianos. So it still falls under their IP, stuff. And they very nicely asked if I would be so kind as to pull it, which was extremely tough, because I think it would have been one of my biggest hits. Everybody loves the MKS20, and I sampled it in a way that kind of like the DX7 stuff. Nobody went near as far as I did, and it was, chromatically all 88 keys, sampled all the way out to digital silence. I captured the quantization noise. I mean, it was extremely detailed, and it sounded fantastic, but I need to be able to sleep at night, and I wanted to preserve my relationship with Roland.
Absolutely.
And we're hoping that maybe something can be done with it at some point. But my suspicion is, and I totally just guessing here, they've been so active with Roland Cloud, putting out virtual versions of everything. I'm betting that we're probably going to see an MKS20 from them at some point.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't know,
but
the real tough part of it is that there's still other people selling illegitimate MKS20 libraries that are not sanctioned, and I wouldn't want to be them if Roland comes knocking, because
they have deep lawyer pockets.
They do.
Yeah. But
it really hurt. It was tough, but it was a valuable lesson to never make assumptions on the front end.
Yeah. But the bottom line is you did the right thing. And,
right.
And you can't ask any more than that. So.
Right.
So, that's a shame, but fingers crossed that will come along. So what plans? I mean, you said you're doing these little extensions for DX Streams, the add-ons, and then you got this Prophet 5. Anything else that what would be the next thing that you'd like to do? I'm not saying you've got plans to do it, but
sure.
What would be next for you?
There's a few. There's at least 4 things that are kind of officially in the pipeline. One is whatever we're going to call it, Prophetic Dreams, based on the Prophet 5. There's one based on Roland's analog synths. The trick with that is, do you call it JX Dreams, JP Dream? I don't know what you'd call it. Same kind of thing. But that one's based on at least 3 different Roland analogs: the Jupiter 8, the Juno 106, and the JX 8P. The trouble there again is, it's been done to death. Roland's doing it themselves with their hardware and the Roland Cloud. I think my take would be a little different. It'd be kind of like what I did with DX Streams. It would be recreating iconic, well-known sounds, but fully processed, like DX Streams, so that they, that you can pull the sounds apart and kind of a modular. When this is all done, all these DX Streams, the Prophet stuff, the Roland stuff, it's going to be like a smorgasbord of everything that we loved about the 80s, and done with excruciating detail. And then there's a drum machine one, tentatively titled Machines, but kind of those iconic drum machines from the entire era, again with processing that you can take off. So this stuff's radio ready, like here's like the Prince pack or the Simple Minds, whatever, all recorded through analog tape and AMS reverb and processed. It's kind of a fun toolkit. And then speaking of that, the AMS reverb, I mean, as any 80s nut knows, that's such a crucial component to so many of those records. I stumbled on a way to capture impulse responses of that box. And, you know, trying to do that with reverb is tricky, especially if it's got modulation in the tail. Like, it doesn't work with lexicon reverbs. But AMS generally didn't use that. And so I found a way to capture that where I just got extraordinarily lucky. And when I listened to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds identical to the hardware. And so I've got a small pack of impulse responses coming out at some point that I, you know, the Phil Collins drum sound type stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, because I almost bought an AMS, you know, an RMX 16, but they're, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 on the used market.
Yeah.
And you can't find parts for those anymore. And so that's a gamble. I let somebody else have it. I can rent one. You know, I'm in Nashville. I can go up the street and get one in great shape from Blackbird and rent it for a couple days. And so so that's, I'm trying to think if there's something else. There's the Roland stuff, the Prophet, the Oberheim when that comes my way, the AMS reverb. I mean, there's an endless stream. You know, one thing I'd love to do is a library of just analog pads all stacked, you know, combinations of all those together. The Jupiter 8, you know, with the OB stuff and the Prophet. I think there's just endless potential there.
Yeah. Any plans on sampling? Oh, wrong thing. There we go. Any plans on sampling the Harpeggi at all and putting that into sample pack?
No. Somebody else did a Harpeggi library not long ago.
Okay.
I thought stuff like that is just so complicated to try, and
I guess it's a very nuanced thing, isn't it?
Yeah. To me, that's asking for trouble. Sampling keyboards is one thing, but and that's enough work. But sampling something organic like a guitar-based instrument, there are far more talented people out there that know how to do that and have the time. I don't have the time. I want to, you know, the sampling alone is enough of a job. I want to get back to making music. You know, that's why I'm doing this stuff in the first place. I'm giving everybody else the tools to make the music they want to make, but the irony then is that I don't have time to make my own.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about making your own music, you, outside of your MD work with Michael and your stuff doing Backstage Pass libraries and that, you also do sync music for I guess TVs, commercials, movies, that kind of stuff. What's going on in that world at the moment?
That's kind of passive. I mean, the last time I did, you know, anything, I'll get a call once in a while for, you know, can you do this, submit us a demo on spec for a commercial or something. I'll do that from time to time. But really I've got a catalog of stuff that's represented that I'll get a call once in a while. Like back in January, a piece from my Ad Alta project got picked up for a big video game.
Cool.
So that kind of stuff happens, but my interest right now is in, you know, this 80s stuff is still, I'm shocked that 5, 6, 7 years on it's just getting bigger. When Stranger Things, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Stranger Things, but when that show came on, I thought, okay, the 80s are back. This is good for me as a synth guy. I thought for sure it would be over in a year. And here we are, you know, 6, 7 years later. It's just getting bigger and bigger. And so from a licensing standpoint, there's the side of me that just adores big cinematic film music. So I've got a project that I'm brewing that's going to kind of merge all those check boxes that I love. Big orchestral scores with synthesizers and, you know, eventually I'd kind of like to build a live show version of that. I think it would be really, really cool. So I'm probably about a month away from really diving into that project. I have to do the album first, kind of as proof of concept, but I'm looking at bringing in some pretty big names from the 80s to participate. And so I think it could be a really, really fun project to reimagine those songs that everybody loves. You know, Phil Collins, Genesis, Tears for Fears, Simple Minds, Mr. Mister, Duran Duran, all that iconic music in a fresh, you know, new way that I think would really surprise people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my
yeah.
big dream right now.
Sounds fascinating stuff. So we're talking about the 80s, and just recently we mentioned it earlier, the Juno X. Any thoughts on that as a reissue that's not a reissue but is kind of a reissue?
Yeah. I'm actually working on a video about that because, I mean, my goodness, what an explosion of contentious posts around that whole thing. You know, there's so many schools of thought on that. And look, I would be first in line. If Roland reissued a real analog Jupiter 8, who wouldn't love it? But again, at what price? I mean, to do that right, I don't know. I don't want to speculate about that. What I do know is that, for example, the System 8 behind me, the one with that has become one of my favorite synths of the last decade. It just, I've had a Jupiter 8 in here, a Juno 106 next to that thing, and man, that thing is just stunning. So I think people get so worked up about the engine in the car that they're forgetting about, you know, getting from point A to point B. And I mean, yeah, I love analog as much as the next guy, but I think people just get so worked up about, well, it's not analog. And I'm just like, well, have you actually listened to it though? Because, you know, yeah, I would love an analog one too, but I think Roland have done a bang up job of giving us great sounding tools. And like the one underneath that, the Jupiter X, I've liked it a lot since it came out 2 years ago. But as of a couple weeks ago, they just released a new OS for it, OS 3.0. Now I love the Jupiter X.
Right.
That new, it's kind of confusing. You know, it's got its own engine. You know, it's got the Jupiter X model expansion, whatever you call it. It's got a Juno 106 model. It's got a JX8P model. It's got an SH101, and they're all really, really good. But the new one that just came out, it's kind of an idealized version of you know, if a Jupiter 8 came out today with 4 oscillators, and it's got some really cool features. But at the end of the day, what matters to me is, does it sound good? Does it inspire music? And it's a gigantic yes for both of those to me.
Yeah.
And one video I can't wait to do, a good buddy of mine over here who kind of is our Kent. He's the tech that does a lot of the stuff for me. He's a brilliant tech, and he's got his hands on 2 Jupiter 8s right now. And he's going to bring them both over when he's done restoring them. Because I've had the experience. I've heard the System 8 next to the Jupiter 8. I didn't have the gear at the time to do a proper A/B and compare them and capture it on video. This time I'm going to do that. And I think it might make some people mad. But, you know, again, to me, it's just like with the new Juno X, some of this, I don't have one yet. I'm hoping to get one at some point. I think they absolutely nailed the overall vibe of the Juno 106 and then some. I think it's a fantastic new synth. I think it sounds utterly superb. It gives you what you would want from a modern reissue and goes way beyond that. Now, I will say this. I think it's weird to hear piano sounds coming out of a Jupiter X model.
Yep.
I have no interest in those sounds though, so I just don't use them. When I want something that sounds like a Jupiter 8, gives me those same type of sounds, I'll absolutely use it in a heartbeat. It sounds beautiful. It's big, it's fat, it's lush. It sounds like a Jupiter 8 would. And I just don't get hung up on that. Well, is it analog or not? I don't care. What I care about is, does it sound great and does it inspire me? And you know, there's some things I would nitpick about, you know, some of the layout, the way the OS works, but they've actually improved a lot of that really well too in this new OS. The whole menu system has been radically revamped, which was much needed, and it's a lot easier to get around now. And so, yeah, I'd love to have the new Juno X. It'd probably be at a bit of overlap. I mean, I've already got you know, System 8 and the Juno or the Jupiter X, but from what I've heard, it sounds absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like a really, you know, it's we spoke about it a few weeks back, and it's very comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
It looks, it has the Juno look,
Right.
although it's more of the Juno 106 look than it is the classics. But it seems like a really cool thing.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me a little bit about this baby. Let's just quickly watch this thing here. So here we go. Look at this. This is a keyboard stand that is rising all by itself. Well, not all by itself, but look at that. That's cool. That's a key. So excuse the Jim Carrey thing there. Let's go back to this. So you built your own keyboard stand.
Well,
Motorized.
I didn't build that. No. So here's the story. Back in the 80s, Michael W. Smith, the guy that I play for, he used a stand that was very much what you just showed. It wasn't electric, though. It was a hydraulic. It was the base from a drafting table.
Okay.
Actually made by an Italian company. I forget the name of it now, but I always loved the look of it. It looked like a this sleek podium thing. You couldn't see any cables. And talking to a friend of mine who worked for Michael, we overlapped a little bit. When I started, he was still the front of house engineer. And turns out his wife did drafting. And so she found these drafting tables. They were extremely heavy. That thing weighed about 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And Robbie, this is going to horrify you, but they actually, it had like this spring from a car shock inside it. It's extremely powerful because it's meant to lift a couple 100 pounds. Yeah. And he said that you could launch a KX88 across a room if you weren't careful. So anyway, I like the idea. So back in the fall, when I took out the KX88, I thought, I need to try and find one of those drafting table stands. Well, I looked all over the world, and they don't exist anymore because now everybody's doing computer-aided design.
Exactly, yeah.
However, I looked on Craigslist. It's kind of a local eBay thing over here. And I found one in East Tennessee, and come to find out that they make motorized versions of these things. Nice. And they sell, on average, if you find one in good shape, they're usually about anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000. They're very pricey. I found this one for $400, and the guy was willing to drive it all the way over here to Nashville for me. And so the one you just showed, I stripped it down, repainted it, and that one's too big to take on the road. I use it in my studio here. Mm-hmm. But you could lift, I think it's rated at 300 pounds. So the nice thing is you put a KX88 on it, and it's rock solid, doesn't move at all. But I'm actually going to make a desk out of that one. But I found another one that I took on tour that's smaller, but same idea. And you can get those brand new for about $600. But it's the same idea. It's meant for an office. That's it. Yeah. And I love the look of it. And same thing. It's meant to lift about 200 pounds, that one. And looks great. It's zero wobble whatsoever. And it's a really cool piece of gear.
So is this your rig now? So basically KX88 with MainStage, a arpeggi.
Yep. That's the one. That was my rig for the tour we just finished last night.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a little bit busy. I like this. That was basically what I had out in the fall, and the laptop was off to the side. I'm not crazy about it sitting on the KX like that, but for this tour that we just finished, I had to have the arpeggi off to the side, and so I put the laptop on the corner, and so it worked well.
Nice. Ken, have you got any questions for our guest? You've been rather quiet there. Take yourself off mute. Come on.
Yeah, because I've been coughing a lot.
Been coughing.
I've been coughing a lot. Vapes are not supposed to do that, are they?
Yeah. It's your body clearing itself. That's what it is.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah. All years of bullshit are coming out. That's what it is. No, I haven't, because I'm just listening. I'm just listening. I'm just listening and enjoying. I must admit, I'm mesmerised by the whole Knight Rider thing going on in the background there.
The Vegas lights.
I always mean to turn that off before I do this because some guys don't like it and whatever.
Oh, it's cool.
No, I wish I had something behind me that did that because it's rather kind of dark. In fact, I've just realised I haven't got my light. Hang on, let me just do this off air. And there we go. change the colors there at the background.
Wow.
You know, the
Yeah,
funny
cool.
thing about that thing, that's the System 8 that, you know, a lot of guys, I kind of slept on it for a couple of years until I finally listened to one. And a lot of guys get turned off because, oh, the green lights, you know. I couldn't care less. When you listen to that thing, it just has some jaw-dropping sounds in it. That's the one out of everything I have. This digital recreation is the one that takes me back to the early days of the 80s like nothing else in here. It's shockingly good.
And he says that with it sitting next to a DX7.
Yeah, the DX7, the DX7 Mark II, the VFX, D50, and what you can't see, the Prophet 5 sitting here in front of me with space for a new Oberheim in a couple weeks. But yeah.
So anything else on the shopping list apart from the Oberheim?
You know, I look around here and there's a point at which you go, okay, enough. I got to stop adding hardware because you get options overload. You know, there's only so many sounds that you're going to get out of all this stuff. I mean, would I love a CS80? Sure. But, you know, then there's the aspect of maintaining that stuff. I've had most of it. And, you know, it's like driving an old BMW. I love old BMWs, but I don't love the experience of, is it going to drive today? You know, I've got to get work done. And, I love what Dave Smith has been doing, you know, the reissue of the Prophet 5. I think that's one of the best things to happen to the synth world in the last couple decades, last couple of years. And I love what he's doing as a partnership with Tom Oberheim. Getting Tom's name and logo back to him, which ironically involved Behringer, because Music Tribe owned the Oberheim.
Yeah.
Name. So for whatever issues we might have with Behringer as a company, at least they gave Tom his name and logo back, you know, and we have Dave Smith to thank for a lot of that. And I just think it's so cool to see those guys working together, you know, to bring us something that, a lot of guys might not be able to afford it, but you know, hey, there'll be the Behringer option and there's the plug-in options. So no, I've got more than enough options here. To me, what interests me more nowadays is some of the left of center stuff, you know, like there's a plugin called Phase Plant, which is really, really cool. And the Hydra Synth. I mean, there's nothing else like that.
So everybody keeps telling me, but, you know, I just...
Well, you know people, so we got to fix that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to get fixed. Well, I was just going to ask you. It's gone completely out of my head because you mentioned Hydra Synth, and I just go. What was I going to say? Sub 37. How are you getting on with that? Because that's a new acquisition.
Great. That thing.
What do you really like about it?
There's just something. It's a Moog. It's got that sound that you just don't really hear anywhere else. I love the multi-drive aspect. You know, the overdrive that happens when you crank that thing. Interesting thing, which you can't see in front of me here. I just did some moving things around. The Sequential Pro 3 a couple years back, when that came out, I was looking for one really good mono synth, and you know, I've got the Matrix Brute from Arturia, which I love. A lot of guys don't like that. They think that Arturia stuff sounds thin. I don't think it sounds thin at all. It can, of course, but it's got a very, very textural sound to it, and so that kind of scratched my itch for a while for like a Moog flavor. And it's very different, but it does that thing. And then the Sequential, this Pro 3 came out last year, I think it was, and I'm like, boy, that thing really can do some of that kind of thing. But still, nothing quite does what a Moog does. And so I found a great deal locally on a subsequent 37. And I just, like all of us, I was up late on YouTube one night listening to some demos of it through some really good reverbs. And I thought, you know what, that's one flavor I don't have in here. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're having this discussion last night, actually. I brought this up because I just saw something that reminded me that Sequential made a synthesizer not that long ago called the Take 5.
Yep.
And it has vanished off of my radar, and I was not surprised at all to hear that, like loads of other people, that, yeah, what's happened with the Take 5?
Yeah, you don't hear much about it all of a sudden. That's true.
It's weird.
I just played one the other last week. I was stopped at a music store. It is a really, really fantastic synth. I mean, if somebody doesn't have the money to stretch for a Prophet 5, I would have no problem recommending the Take 5. I mean, it totally captures that thing, with modern features. So it's got built-in effects, which are pretty decent. It might not be 100%, but man, it's a great option. And the build is great. I mean, it's the smaller form factor. What is it? 3 octaves, I think, or 2.5.
Yeah.
But still built really well. It's got that Fatar key bed that they use in everything else. I mean, on a features standpoint alone, it's hard to justify a Prophet 5 in some ways, unless you just got to have that look of the original. There's nothing like it. I mean, the way it's spread out, those knobs are glorious. They're big and chunky. And if you were around in those days, I mean, it definitely brings an emotional response, I think. And so there's something about that. But man, on paper, the Prophet 6 is way more synth for the money. And then the Take 5, in terms of synth for dollar or pound, it's hard to beat.
Yeah. It's just weird. Somebody mentioned it, or I saw a picture of it or something. I thought, oh yeah, I'd completely forgotten about it, because we're not seeing it every day or most days. Everyone's talking about everything else. I wasn't sure whether it was maybe down to the component shortage that they weren't building as many, or whether it just bombed. Was it a synthesizer?
I don't think it's bombed. From what I've heard, they've sold quite well.
Cool.
But for whatever reason, we're not seeing. Yeah, it's just not in the news a whole lot.
But Ken, you also said,
well, bizarrely enough, I mean, maybe what you did, you must have disturbed the ether or something, because I had a guy on the front doorstep this morning dropping off his TR-77 that's completely stopped working, and then started to wax lyrical about his Take 5. I'm going, we were just talking about that last night, and about how nobody's talking about the Take 5, and you're on my doorstep and I've never met you before, and you're talking about the Take 5. What the hell?
Weird, isn't it? Weird. There is a term for that. It's sensitization, I think, where you don't notice something for ages and ages, and then you have one reference, and then all of a sudden it's like cars. I haven't seen a particular type of car for ages. Then like literally every other car you see is one of those cars, because you just
some sort of collective rib poking or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So talking of cars, you're a big BMW fan, aren't you, Jim?
I am. Yeah.
Sorry.
You fix cars too, Kent?
I used to be a panel beater.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I was crash repair. No, what's wrong with a Chrysler? What's the matter with you, man? Get yourself a 300.
Kent loves his American cars.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
So many Americans I know love German cars. I used to go out with a girl here, and her father was a tech sergeant on one of the air bases around here, and he just loved his BMW. We couldn't touch it. Could not touch it. He would always walk around and inspect it before anybody got in. He just absolutely adored his BM. Really, really loved it.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. So you're going back out on tour. I did have the dates here. Let's just share this with, where are we? It was there we go, Michael W. Smith website. So European tour kicks off. Let's see. June 22nd in Germany, June 23rd Germany, then Sweden, then Netherlands, then you're back to the US in early July, and then you come back to London at the XL Centre. That's a big gig, July 16th, and then off to Budapest at the Puskás Ferenc Stadium, or the Ferenc. That's weird, isn't it? It's because it's Ferenc Puskás, not Puskás Ferenc. I don't know. Anyway, he was great. He was a great footballer. July 23rd. And then July 29th of my birthday. You're back in Indiana. Yeah. Shipshawana.
Yeah.
That's a great. Oh, you Americans have some great place names. Seriously. And
an old Indian name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then Lancaster, Philadelphia, September 29th. So you're coming over to Europe. You're looking forward to that. Do you come over that often?
Well, we used to. It's been a couple of years. So yeah, I'm greatly looking forward to it. In fact, I think we were last there. Well, it must have been just before COVID.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, whatever that was, 2019, I guess it was.
Yeah. Because how is touring shaping up for you now since things have started to relax and open up more? You've just done this tour with yourself and Michael on just on keyboards, but are you? Because we've spoken to some people recently, and they're just saying it's crazy. Everybody's out touring. You can't hire gear for love nor money.
Right.
It's just So how are you finding it?
Yeah, very very much the same. We really got back into it this past fall, and other than having to jump through hoops like getting tested and all that kind of stuff, it was fully back on. Now, some of the venues, it depended on where you were. Every state handles it a little differently here, and even some of the venues themselves. But I was talking to Michael's booking agent, and he was telling me that at the time, about 20 to 30% of people who had tickets just didn't show for whatever reason.
Wow.
Most likely due to concerns about COVID or whatever. But it was like, being fully back on. Yeah. And like you said, everybody was out. Yeah. You couldn't hire a tour bus or anything. They were all out. And so I was a little surprised, actually, to hear that some of the European places were opening back up again. But with few exceptions, it looks like it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. I mean, I've been going to a few more gigs now in the last few weeks. I've got some more booked coming up later this year. So it's just great to kind of be out and be with people and listen to live music. And just fantastic stuff. So if people want to get in touch with you or find out about this stuff, you've got the Jim Daneker website. You've also got your YouTube channel as well. So let's just bring some of these up for people so that they can see what we got. So Jim Daneker Music to Inspire. That's everything you want to know about Jim, about his scoring, his programming, his studio, Backstage Pass, of course, all the links there, Stereo Phoenix. And then we've got, if you want to know more about Backstage Pass, then correct me here, you've got the Backstage Pass website is still live, but then if you want to go and buy it, it will take you through to...
It'll just take you, it basically is just point of purchase. I mean, everything is still on the backstagepass.store site. It's just that when you click buy, it'll take you to multi-tracks.
Excellent stuff. So let's see, Backstage Pass, here we go. So it's backstagepass.store. That gives you all the information. Oh, it would help if I put that on the screen, wouldn't it? There we go. Right. All the information. And these are great things. And, of course, don't forget that all of this Backstage Pass stuff isn't just for MainStage. It's fully usable in Logic, which is where I use most of it, because I don't play live. And, of course, it all comes with this wonderful Touch OSC implementation. Have you made any changes with that recently, or is that still...
No, it's kind of, once that's in place, there's no need. I mean, the way I think about it is, that's really what you're showing there. That's my personal live rig. I intended it to be something where if you want to make changes to it, you do what makes it work for you. I mean, Touch OSC is a brilliant bit of kit. I mean, you can really make it do pretty much anything. And I've used it for the better part of a decade. And so the way it's delivered is the way it works for, really for the live player. But I encourage people, get in there and make it your own,
Yeah. Well, I knew of it, but never got into it. And then when you mentioned it the time you came on, I thought, oh, well, it's free. Let's have a look. I do need to sit down and sort of learn it properly, because I think it would be a really useful thing to have. Yeah, and it works on the old iPad as well. I've got a really old iPad, and it still works great.
I still use it with the very first generation iPad, and it works great.
Yeah, absolutely. So backstagepass.store. Thank you, by the way, Sass, for putting all the links to all the topics up into the chat. They will go in to the description. Something we started doing, I think it was last week, actually. Everything we talk about, we now put the links into the description so you can easily find out what we're talking about. But if you're watching on Catch Up, the links will also show in the chat feed there on the right of the screen. And of course, Backstage Pass, when you buy that, it takes you through to the multi-tracks page. Let's see if we can do that live on air. Is it going to do it? No, it's not, because it opens up a new tab. There you go. But anyway, it takes you through there. You can make your purchases and do everything through that page there. If you want to know the tour stuff, then it's michaelwsmith.com. So Michael's coming over to Europe in June and July, and Jim will be accompanying. And hopefully we can hang out.
That would be lovely.
Be very, very cool. So I think that kind of about wraps it up for this week. Let's see, who have we got on next week? Oh no, I'll tell you who we've got. We've got a couple of weeks where Ben's off ill at the moment, but which is kind of useful because, well, I say it's useful for us because he wasn't going to be here anyway because he got gigs. But I guess he's going to have to cancel those now, which is a bit of a pig. But in June we've got Elliot Kennedy coming on the show. Now, Elliot Kennedy is a superb songwriter. And unbeknownst to me, I only found this out last Saturday night. He was the chief judge, or head judge, shall we say, for the UK's Eurovision judging team. So him and about 6 other people sit on this judging team and award the points for the UK jury. And he's like the head guy. So I can't wait to speak to him about the whole Eurovision program. Is Eurovision a big thing over in the US?
It depends who you talk to. I'm definitely familiar with it.
Yeah. Did you watch it at all this year?
No.
It was actually one of the best Eurovisions.
That's what somebody was telling me. I'd have to check it out.
I often it's one of those things I like. If I'm in the mood, I'll sit and watch it, and I'll either be cynical and take the mickey out of, oh, look at them, laughing at this, but I think every entry this year, bar 1 or 2 that were just a little weak, were really great songs, really good performances. There was very little of this novelty aspect. It was all very, and then of course the Ukrainians, they were going to win every whatever day.
Right.
And it wasn't a bad piece. I actually thought, I'm slightly biased of course, but I thought the British entry was superb, and I think the performance of the night was amazing. What did anybody else notice? And this is the thing. I'm wondering if this is going to pop up into the chat. But there was one entry, I forget who it was now, and they started performing. The camera was on the guy's hands playing on the keyboard, and then it panned around, and he'd got this really big Eurorack module with all the cables plugged in and the lights flashing. And I thought, wow, now you know when Eurorack has made it, it's on Eurovision.
Eurorack on Eurovision. On the record.
Did you post about that, Robbie? Somebody did a post about that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh wow! I mean, obviously none of it was being played or plugged in, but it looked good, and it's always cool.
Yeah, but
there's a guy
the
over
best track
here.
Was "Give the Wolf a Banana."
Oh yes, the Norwegian one. That was the only kind of novelty one, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was the best one. That
was weird.
By
dressed
far.
up in their Sorry, Jimmy, you were saying?
I was just going to say there's a guy in our little niche of the industry, a guy named David Crowder. He just goes by Crowder. He travels with a big modular setup, and it's pretty crazy. But he's known for kind of doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you have anything similar in the US, like kind of like an interstate song contest or something, where you just lots of people get together and have a crazy night of?
Not that I can think of. You're probably asking the wrong guy, though. I'm just not a TV guy. I don't ever sit and watch TV. Other than we watch our British dramas. We love our Downton Abbey over here. And
oh yes, and we love our American dramas. There's some really good stuff coming out.
Yeah,
of course, Stranger Things. Sorry. Oh yes,
New series of Bosch.
Bosch,
and my weekend is taken care of.
Stranger Things season 4 starts this time next week.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's going to be one. I will definitely be finishing the show at 9 o'clock next week.
Yeah, right.
Good night, downstairs. Bye. Gotta go. Bye. That's can't wait for it. They actually, I haven't seen it yet, but I noticed somebody mentioned they put like the first 8 minutes of the first episode. They've thrown that up online. Official. It's not.
Oh wow. Okay.
So you can just kind of get a little tease. But what I wanted to do was kind of rewatch seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Just to get back up to speed again. But
right.
I just don't think I'm going to find the time. It's crazy. Anyway, talking of time. So what's coming up for you in the immediate future? You're going out on tour again fairly soon. How long are you at home before you have to go out again?
We have a couple one-off dates. I think June 3rd or 4th before we head over the pond, and then that's basically it. We have those 2 Europe trips. We're doing an Alaskan cruise in July.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
we do that for a week, and then we come back over there later in July, and then I think August and September are pretty much empty.
Cool.
And then from after that, the rest of the year is going to be pretty full again.
And you'll be filling all the empty times with Backstage Pass development and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Cool stuff. Well, look, thank you ever so much for coming on again, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure
Always
to be on
enjoy.
with both of you. Kent, like I said, you're a legend. Awesome to talk to you.
Dude. Apparently. I don't know where you get that from, honestly.
Well, the synth nerds over here know who you are because you're, the stuff you've got your hands in all the time.
He's a man.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's very true. No, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Jim. Come back again soon.
Thank you.
Especially when you've got more Backstage Pass stuff to show us.
Sure will.
Come and tell us all about that. Kent, what you got planned this weekend, sir? Anything interesting?
Maybe a bit of rugby tomorrow. But I'm actually at a loose end tonight. I think I actually might do a little after-hours show.
Oh, no. I shall have to. I might give that a miss. Well, I've done my amount of live streaming this week. I was up till my head hit the pillow about 2:00 yesterday morning, or this morning, should I say? So.
Yeah, I know it was. Yeah, it was a long one, wasn't it? Mind you, I'm supposed to be doing one tomorrow as well, so I don't know whether I should do one tonight.
Talking of yes, we must mention. Must mention. So normally on a Saturday afternoon UK time, Rands, who's in Australia, so it's like his late evening, I think. He does his show, and tomorrow he's not doing his show. He's basically taking a week off for a bit of a breather. However, Eddie, or he's also known as F Rose or Froze in the chat, he's the wonderfully articulate Spanish gentleman that lives in Somerset in the West Country. He's going to be doing a kind of like a Randsy replacement service tomorrow afternoon. I think Andrew has just thrown the link up into the chat, and I think Sass was doing the same. Here we go. I assume that's going to be at the same time, which is like 1 or 2 p.m. I'm sure somebody in the chat will clarify that. But yeah, so if you're going to miss your weekly dose of Rands' show, then Eddie's going to be doing like a replacement thing. He's been in touch with me this week asking a few questions. He's been telling me about some of the things he's got lined up. He's really going for it. So let's give him some support. And if you're at a loose end tomorrow afternoon, I think I'm going to be busy. Unfortunately, I'm going out for lunch. But yeah, go and join that. Also, I do need to mention, because I haven't already, Andrew, thank you very much for your donation. A few Yorkshire groats for the funds. They're not worthless. Every single penny is fantastic, and it helps us keep this place running and on the air. And once again, thank you to Wagyu for 5 chuffs. So it's Swiss franc. I always wondered, what is the C? What was the C got to do with Switzerland? Somebody will tell me. I'm sure. I've never... Because it's CH, isn't it? The initials on the back of a car if it comes from Switzerland. What does it stand for? Because I don't know. I'm sure he'll tell us. But thank you for your donation. Car hire. Yeah. Go on, somebody in the chat tell us. Make me look completely ignorant. Which just doesn't take much. You say I'm going out for lunch tomorrow. I'm going to have a lie-in tomorrow morning. I'm just going to get up. Yeah, get up and then go out for lunch, and hopefully somebody will pay instead of me. And and I got this in the post today. The Rick Astley debut album, Super Deluxe Edition with extra stuff. So I'm going to be listening to that. And
literally rickrolled yourself.
I've just rickrolled myself. It came with a free, it was free. This is Never Going to Give You Up. There's like 7 different mixes. It's like the CD single, never been released before. But if you are at a loose end and you're looking for something new to listen to, I can highly recommend the new album by what is known as Ex-Propaganda, because they are the two ladies from Propaganda from back in the 80s have joined forces with Steve Lipson and put out this album. And I've been listening to it, and it's bloody brilliant.
Do they have access to a PPG?
I don't know, but Lipson's production on there is as good as it ever was, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Then. Cool.
And they've also done a Atmos remix.
Wow.
So she'll be listening to that tomorrow. But yeah, the album is absolutely brilliant. If you're into your synths and your 80s sounds, it's absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Well, the bells have just chimed in the village over at the church, so it must be 9 o'clock. Gentlemen, thank you
Again, the man in the Wickham.
Indeed, yes. Well, you know what it's like around here.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much, Jim. Absolutely fantastic to have you on. Stay in touch, mate, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Kent, I will speak to you again, maybe later tonight, if not sometime at the weekend. I'm very sure. Love to Fiona and the dogs, and to Mrs. Daneker as well. I'm sure she's glad to have you home, or maybe not. I don't know.
So far, so good.
Brilliant stuff. And to everyone that's been watching in the chat room. Here we go. Andrew, very quickly, just Cantones Helveticae. What's that then? That's what CH apparently stands for in the reference to Switzerland. But yeah, there you go. You learn something every day.
Sounds like a font somebody forgot to install.
It does, doesn't it? Yes. Cantones Helveticae. It's a font. I don't know if Andrew's winding us up or whether that's actually the truth, but Wagyu seems to.
Andrew, he's so smart.
Well, he is.
He's a very educated man.
Very educated. Well, he's an educator.
He was
so
talking German last night on the show.
I know. Sickening. Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. To everyone in the chat room, thank you for joining us as ever on the live show. And if you're watching on catch up, thanks ever so much for coming back and paying us a visit. And of course, if you want to donate, then all the links are below and press the buttons and what have you. Until next week, we don't think we'll have a guest on next week unless somebody surprises me. We shall see. But as I said, we've got Elliot Kennedy coming on in a few weeks' time. We've also got the guys from Sonicware, who have just successfully funded, like that was ever not going to happen, the sample trek. So we've got Evan and Chris coming on from Sonicware in July to tell us all about that, and we've got loads of other things lined up for you for the rest of the year. So stay tuned and make sure you subscribe to us and share the link around. And until next week, take the greatest of care, have a fantastic weekend, and we will all see you same time, same place next week. Ta-ta, bye-bye.
Au revoir.